Hi, this is Coach World TV. I'm Laurie Lawson, and tonight my guest is longtime Coach World TV friend, Win Sheffield. Hey, Win. Win is a career coach, and every time we have him on, he is so fascinating, and he tells us so many great things, and tonight's not going to be an exception. First of all, Win, give us a little bit of your background so they know why should they even pretend that you know about careers. Trust me, he does.
Well, I went through careers myself. I started out, got interested in this way back when, because I switched companies 3 times myself. I started out working for Citicorp. And then went on to work for J.P. Morgan, and after that I was a consultant at PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Wow, okay. And, so we're convinced you know how to play in the corporate world, yes.
I played in the corporate world, and then got certified as a 5 o'clock club coach about 8 or 9 years ago. And I've been doing career coaching ever since.
Now, what made you say, coach, I want to be a coach? Was it just the opportunity that the 5 o'clock club offered, or had you been thinking about it?
I got very interested in the fact, well, when I did get career coaching myself between those jobs, I got interested in the process. Okay. And I also am frustrated to see a lot of people doing things to get their next jobs that are not very productive.
Win just keeps saying, people should know this, and they don't. And I think his goal is to get it out there.
That's right.
However,
one television program at a time.
That's it. And make no mistake, this gentleman does a lot of public speaking, and some of it's free. We're going to tell you about how you can find out where he is and some of the topics that he's been talking about. But I don't know the first time you were on, but I think it was after 2008 when all the games started going crazy. And I guess what I want to ask you is, we're going to get into the specifics of, some things that we should and shouldn't do, but what changes have you seen over the last 2 years? Is it better? Is it worse? Are there premises that don't change?
There's a lot that doesn't change, and we can talk about that.
Hallelujah.
In some of the specifics.
We don't have to learn everything from the start. Good.
The problem with the economy is that people aren't being employed, and that's not news to any of our listeners here.
Right.
And so what used to take 12 weeks now takes half again as long, or maybe not quite that much. But in the greater New York metropolitan area, that's not quite true. In New York City alone, there are about 80,000 people who get employed in new jobs every month.
Wow, really? Oh,
that's
so encouraging.
It is encouraging. And then, if you look back at 2008, there might have been 90,000 who were being employed every month. Okay. But the fact is, there are jobs, and people are getting them. Now, are employers getting a lot more to choose from, and are they choosing what they want? You bet. Okay,
just as we were impressed with the 80,000, tell them how many resumes the average position gets. This is going to be very depressing. I'm warning you right now.
Well, all right. If you're applying for a job that's listed on one of those big job sites that are very popular, you can expect to have approximately 600 fellow competitors. Not all of those competitors are going to be taken seriously, but there'll be quite a few who have enough background to be looked at twice instead of just once before the resume is tossed.
So what should we do? Where do we start here? Now it's like, okay, that's daunting, definitely. Do we send out more resumes? How does this work?
Basically,
we send out double resumes.
Sending out resemés, or yes, you might. It's like a lottery ticket. You might buy 3 or 4, right? That's not quite. Sadly, if there were any easy answers to this,
somebody would have figured it out.
Somebody would have figured it out.
Yes.
You need to psych out the system. You need to figure out what's going on. And bottom line is this. You've got employers. They've got problems that need to get solved.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
They've got creativity that needs to be brought into their workplace. They've got people that need to talk to other people so that things can get done. They've got stuff to do, right?
Yes.
If they didn't have stuff to do, they wouldn't go through the enormous pain that it is. If any of you out there have hired people, you know whereof I speak.
Yeah.
The enormous pain of sifting through the candidates who come in the door.
I mean, 600 resumes to start with, just to sift. Can you imagine? Oh.
And, you know, you've got employee programs where employees are referring in other people, and you've got contacts from people you know. There are a lot of people, and you don't want to have to go through that. So what you want to do is figure out who are going to be good candidates for you, who are going to stick around for a while, because the hiring process isn't fun. So very interestingly, I read an article interviewing the head of recruiting for a large investment bank here in town. And she was asked what the single most important thing for her was in a candidate. The single most important thing. I'm sure you're all turning up your volume now. You'll never guess what it was. It was that her candidate be enthusiastic. That they want to do the job. Now, you'd think you come in with all those criteria. I can do this, I can do that, I can do the other.
And I've done it before.
And I've done it before. But if you come in and say, I've done this, I've done that, I've done the other, and I've done it before, like you never want to do it again, somebody for whom this is maybe even a new field, who hasn't done it all exactly before, is going to come in and say, this is the most exciting job that I could ever have. And that's the person, at least this woman, that's the person who this woman would hire.
Amazing. Does that mean that we should all go in and fake enthusiasm, like, oh my God, I'm so excited, I can't wait to clean the bathroom, or what?
Have you been on Broadway?
No, I have not.
Then you might not get away with it.
Only in a seat, but never on stage.
Yeah. I think you know, we all have that feeling in the pit of our stomach, and we know when we're being sold a bill of goods.
Eventually, and especially if you're a savvy employer who has done so many interviews that, you know.
And if you don't get caught on the first round, you'll get caught on the second round or the third round, because that's the norm these days.
Yeah,
so you've
there's
got
no such thing as a single interview. You're right. Yeah.
So then a lot of people will be going, well, okay, I'm going to give up now entirely. That's it.
600
There's
resumes,
no point
and I
going
have
ahead.
to be enthusiastic. I can't win here.
All right. So it's hard to imagine that anybody could be enthusiastic looking at the job descriptions. If you've looked at any job descriptions recently in those ads, they want people who walk on water. And you just think, I might as well not even try. And actually, we'll get to that. But the answer might be, that's not the way in, so you might not want to try.
Okay, so, all right, what is the thing that what is the first thing you tell your clients when they come to you and they go, I need a job. I need a job. What do you tell them?
First
what
thing
do you
I
ask
do
them?
is ask them a question.
Okay.
And that is, what do you want to do?
Oh, that's the hard
Well,
one.
that's right. And then I watch some of the faces go, oh, I don't know what I want to do. Well, of
wanna
course
work.
you don't know what you want to do when you're beginning. It's perfectly normal not to know what you want to do. It's not like you have to know. As a matter of fact, certainly for the job 5 years down the road, it probably doesn't even exist yet. So you cannot be aiming for that job because nobody's doing it yet.
Okay.
So what you want to do, if you don't know, you know some things you're interested in. You know some things you've done before that you never want to do again.
Yeah, it's much easier to figure out what you don't want to do.
That
Everybody
is, it
knows
is.
that, yeah.
But then you can also take some time and figure out some things that you have done before that you want to do again. So there are times, for instance, when you want to be in the meeting because you're the person who makes things clear to other people in the meeting so everybody can get their views and needs out on the table so that a solution can be arrived at. Or you're the person who can put together a really clear PowerPoint presentation so those executives can look really good. Or you're the person who knows how to really analyze those figures in, say, financial control positions so that all of the facts that are important are the ones that get raised up first. We all bring certain things to the table.
And you're saying even though you might be able to do that, it should be something that you want to do, that you enjoy doing,
That's right,
get your adrenaline going a little bit.
It might seem self-indulgent. The Puritan in us all would say, well, no, you have to do your duty, son. What do you think you are, going out there getting what you want? I don't know about you, but the things that I like to do are the things that I get done better and faster and look for ways to do things better and faster, and I'm really interested and engaged in. And I know you could say, well, what I really want to do is play golf. And I put it to you that there are probably some other things that you like to do too. One of the interesting ways to think about this, to make it a little easier, we so identify, say we've been on a trading desk. I don't know how many people are on trading desks that are watching here.
Many are unemployed. They used to be, though, yes.
But you look at the skills that you need on a trading desk, and they're very specific. The knowledge of the market that you have is very specific. But it's funny. There's an analysis that you're doing that's connected with that market. There's ways of dealing with numbers and with people that are connected with that market. But your ability to deal with people and your ability to deal with numbers can be shifted over to a different subject area in a way that's... Let me give you an example.
Okay.
I had a client who walked in and sat down. She had a great job. Project manager for a large retail firm. She was in charge of selling products that you and I buy. Big deal.
Cool.
Nice salary to go along with it. I asked her to start telling me about it. Well, we increased sales by 10% quarter on quarter for 8 quarters in a row.
No enthusiasm.
No enthusiasm. She did not want that job. So I said, okay, leave the workplace. Go back in your history. There must have been a time when you did something you liked. She started to talk about her backstage experience in high school productions of theater. I promise you, it was a different person in front of me. She was enthusiastic about what they had to do to change the angle of the stairs so they could get down the stairs and not fall and still fit with it. I said, is there anything like that in your job? Well, she said, it's funny you should ask. There are product launches. And what I do for product launches, I always have a big event. And it's always such fun to do a big event. And she proceeded to describe all the skills which she'd learned in high school backstage and how she applied them to do her product launches. Well, funnily enough, there are people she hired, event planners, to assist her with that job. By having thought about it from this point of view, she then has a whole other group of people she can go off to and get employed by at a salary which is commensurate with what she's getting, because she's providing the expertise that her former colleagues all need of being able to put together a great event.
So you're saying she took a segment of the job that she was doing, the one that really gave her the zing, which was event planner, and now can take that and launch that into a career?
She does work for the same people who were her colleagues, and competitors.
Okay.
And she knows what they need because she's done it.
Okay. So I see. So she could just be an event planner for all of these people.
For big scale convention kinds of things. She's not going to go be a wedding planner.
Right.
Not that you couldn't be.
Okay.
That would be one way to take it. But she was high.
Now, that's great. And so that would be one question you would ask someone who comes in and goes, I need a job, I hate my job, but I don't know what I want to do. One would be go back and find out, what did you used to like to do?
You can begin to look at things and then begin to tease out what you've done from the context that you've done it and figure out where those skills are applicable somewhere else.
And actually, you're not discrediting the qualities that you have, because you're using that as an entree into a whole different world where you can do what you want to do. What's another way you would get someone to start thinking about what they like to do, or what they might like to do?
Another example. Somebody was brought up in a household with two parents who were doctors.
Okay.
They hate medicine. They want nothing to do with medicine, and never has medicine been intriguing to them at all as a career.
Okay.
But they find, through stumbling into it, that they're really good at running their own business. Well, what is being a doctor? It's running your own business. All the dynamics of a family with people who are running their own business, all the kinds of considerations that get brought up over the dinner table are all really familiar to you.
Okay.
Right? So there's no one way into this. There's
Okay.
all right.
So even if it's a career that you're not in love with, you've learned something. There are aspects of it.
Well,
that
it's
have
not
taught
your
you.
career; it's somebody else's career.
Right,
So
but
the
you know
other
you don't
thing
wanna
is
do
you're going
that.
back to extract from what your influence is, what you've been exposed to look for ideas for yourself. So you go and you immediately, quite rightly, rule out medicine. But it's hard to then think about moving medicine. Oh, what is medicine? Medicine is doing certain things as an entrepreneur. So there are different threads that you'll pull in.
Pull out. Okay. Pull in, pull out, weave together, whatever. Speak to me about being curious.
So we started out by saying you don't necessarily, it's very important to know what you want to do, but you don't.
No, I told him that most of my clients, that's the biggest question. I know I don't want to do what I'm doing, but I don't know what I want to do. Yeah.
So by going back and looking at all these things, you're going to get one exposure to the kinds of things you might do. But if I asked you, when you pick up a magazine, which part of it do you turn to, or what kind of magazines do you subscribe to, or what kinds of things do you watch on television that are fact-oriented perhaps, or maybe not, then there's certain things that we're all interested in, right?
Right.
It could be that, we're interested in sports. And if you're in New York, there are a lot of sports organizations you could work for. And a lot of other people want to work for them, so it's pretty competitive. But you begin to see where you don't know what you do, for instance, in Major League Baseball. Say you're an accountant. You assume that Major League Baseball has accounting, but you don't know anything about it because you've been an accountant for a bank or something. Well, then you want to go to a professional organization, for instance, for accountants, and begin to talk to people and find out, maybe you start out broad, maybe you start out in the entertainment industry. Who does accounting for the entertainment industry? Well, then you talk to that person, you find out that they've worked in other parts of the entertainment industry. Well, have you ever worked with sports? Well, no, I haven't worked with sports, but I have worked with a chorus, and you begin to then, well, what's that like? Because it's an organization that travels around and does might have some of the same accounting functions,
Problems, problems and challenges.
Right.
Yes.
So you learn as you go by talking to people and finding out what it is that they do in their job. And if you're interested enough in it to follow along, then that's something you want to pursue more of. You don't always know where you're going to end up. So, for instance, early on in my career, I thought about being a consultant. And as you heard me say at the beginning, I was a consultant. And the reason I didn't want to be a consultant when I started out of MBA school was that I didn't want to travel. You know, you leave on Monday morning at best and come back on Friday or Saturday, do your laundry, see your friends, and go do the same thing again for the next week. Wasn't for me. And then years later, I became a consultant. Did I all of a sudden decide I wanted to travel? No. What I found is that what you know of as true and absolute is true and absolute for 95% of the people in the profession. It turns out that some consultants only work in one place. And how is that possible? Because they work for an industry that's focused in that place. So I had experience in investment banking. So I was able to join a consulting practice that focused on investment banking.
In New York City.
I was in New York City, and let me tell you, most of the work to be done is down at the end of Wall Street.
Yes. Yes, it is.
And then occasionally I'd have to travel to London. I made do.
Oh, too bad. Well, give me the analogy. I love the analogy of the plane circling and the degrees of...
Okay, so what we've been talking about here is starting out on a process and letting curiosity drive you and not knowing where you're going to end up. But knowing that from the employer's point of view, it's important that you're doing what you want, and that this process of learning what you want you get to enjoy going out and talking to people about things you like, which makes you memorable for them. So you'll go out and talk to somebody and you will learn something about the landscape. So when I was talking to you earlier, I said, you're flying at 50,000 feet. When you're flying at 50,000 feet, you can see, say you're flying over Iowa, you can see all those beautiful farms down below, that beautiful land. Say you decide from 50,000 feet that you want it. You swipe your credit card through the thing at the back of the seat, and eventually you land in Davenport and rent a car and drive to your farm. And that nice barn that looks so pretty from 50,000 feet is kind of on its last legs. And that fence that was so charming, also not in very good shape. And those fields, well, some of them got a lot of rocks with grass growing up in between. But at 50,000 feet, it looked great. So the assumption that people make is that they have to decide from 50,000 feet what it is their job is. Well, once you talk to somebody who's done the job before or something like it, then you're moving from 50,000 to 40,000 feet. When you're hovering over a landscape at 40,000 feet, you know different things about it than you did at 50, and likewise at 30 and 20 and so on. So the idea is that as you get to talk to people and get their ideas, you get a clearer and clearer idea of what that landscape is that you want to get into. And you know that farm's not the one to get. But that one 5 miles over here is a good farm. And you know that because you've taken the trouble to get in closer to the ground.
Circle. All right, talk to me, and we have like 4 minutes, believe it or not, and I want to save a minute so you can find out how to get in touch with this guy. But I asked him, I said, what's the biggest mistake that people are making today? And I think one of the things you said was that they're trying to do it by paper. And trying to find a job by paper, which of course is, I found my job at the New York Times, here's my resume, the whole thing. Talk to us a little bit about why it's not a good idea to do it by paper and what is the other way to do it.
It's not a good idea. Statistically, the number of people who get their jobs through ads is somewhere between 5 and 15%. So if you're spending all your time pursuing a strategy which is only successful between 5 and 15% of the time, not a wonderful idea.
So spend 5 or 15% of your time doing it that way.
Absolutely. And then what I've been describing to you is the process of learning more, and that is the process of networking. That's the networking which you should be doing as opposed to the networking which, hi, I'm Win Sheffield, have a card.
And
might not be the most
Yes.
effective thing you do for your job search.
The networking is creating the relationships, which I think most of us are savvy enough to know. But and every question I asked him would go back to the old traditional way, and it was like, even I'm having trouble with this. It's like, yes, that's one way to do it, but not the most effective.
I saw some great advice. It was written up in a column in the New York Times a couple of years ago, and it said this: by all means, apply for jobs after 5 o'clock. So you begin your job search at 8 or 9 in the morning, you take time off for lunch, you may go to a movie in the afternoon, and then after 5 o'clock, for the 5 or 15% of the time it'll be successful, send in your resume. Don't use your best time of day to be doing the stuff that's least important. Use your best time of day to craft that letter to get to talk to someone who will be important for you as a contact.
Or even to make a connection with someone who may know who would be important. I mean, just
That's right. It doesn't have to
keep
be
the
your
ball
network.
rolling.
You do not have to have the world's best network, but the people you speak to have to have a network.
Okay. So yeah, that's I love that. Do it after 5. If the statistics are saying 5 to 15%, that's how much time you should be using or devoting to something with that kind of success rate. All right, let me tell you that this gentleman has a website, of course, and it's called Win Sheffield, which his name is right there, .com. And you can find him, and he's got do you have a blog or no? You work on it.
Occasionally I have a blog.
Has a great newsletter, right?
I have some material on the website every month that changes. But for those of you in the New York metropolitan area, I give talks, free talks, around town all the time. I give other talks if your organization needs somebody to come in and talk about networking or negotiating or anything else. I'm happy to do that. But I give free talks around town so that people can begin to do the kinds of job searches which will really serve them and ultimately serve the people they work for.
Remember, I told you, people should know this. They need to know this, and they don't. So he's doing that one talk at a time. You have something coming up Thursday, right?
Yes, Thursday I'm speaking at 6 o'clock at the Muhlenberg Library, which is on West 23rd Street at about 7th Avenue. And I'll be giving a talk there on morale, because you have to work to keep up your morale sometimes in job search. And so I'll be talking about some of the techniques to make that easier and to bring some of the fun back into your job search, believe it or not.
Yes, I do, because I've seen his website. Thank you, Win. It has been a total pleasure, and as always, you're a great guest.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.